Hey guys, congratulations on making it to the end of my Tales from the Borderlands Let's Play. Not that I think it was a chore or anything, in fact I kinda hope it wasn't, but still I just wanted to thank you all again for watching. If you've just stumbled onto this video and haven't seen the rest of the Let's Play, well I'm afraid you've started at the wrong end. This is the final video I'm making for my Tales from the Borderlands Let's Play, where I just wanted to touch on where I think the plot of Borderlands could go from here going into the next Borderlands game. Now, if that sounds interesting to you and you have played all the other Borderlands games before, then feel free to watch this. From here on out, I'm just going to call the next game Borderlands 3. That's not any official name, it's just for simplicity's sake. Obviously, I don't actually know anything. All this is basically just going to be things I'd like to see, but it'll be fun to discuss it nonetheless. To be clear, this is all just going to be plot stuff. You aren't going to hear me hope for a refill all ammo button or for butt slams to stay in the game. I do hope we get both of those. We're here for the lore, which should stand to a testament to how much I love Tales from the Borderlands, since story was never why anyone played Borderlands in the first place. But I'm rambling. It's been a minute and 15 seconds, I'm rambling. First, let's take a look at some of the major plot threads that have yet to be resolved. So let's tackle this in game release order. At the end of Borderlands 2, starting with 2 since 1 doesn't really leave a whole lot unresolved. At the end of Borderlands 2, it's revealed to the player that there's vaults not only on Pandora, but actually everywhere spread out across the galaxy, or maybe even universe. A lot of people were quick to assume that this meant the Borderlands franchise would evolve into more of an MMO game, especially since years before Borderlands 2 came out, they also trademarked the name Border Worlds. And wouldn't you know it, they were working on an online game, Borderlands Online. This would have been a Chinese free-to-play online game, if it had actually come out at all. Sadly, development on that game was recently cancelled. Nonetheless, an MMO-like game is hopefully not what Gearbox had in the cards. I really like something more of a refined experience. Now, what I'd really like to see come out of the whole multiple vaults thing is a couple of things. First off is the ability to travel to different planets. Borderlands takes place in a universe where space travel has obviously been figured out. Hell, even Janie and Scooter alone were able to build us a rocket by hand in Tales from the Borderlands, and only one of them actually has any sort of rocket expertise. Now, I definitely don't want to see space battles. I don't think that would fit the game, but I'd love to see new locations. Borderlands 2 went a long way in making Pandora look, well, I mean, it's still a shithole, but it was less brown and boring, and I'd like to see some more creativity in different locations. I'd love to go to see new planets and see how other people are faring in a world that isn't overrun by psychos. Another thing I'd really hope the whole number of vaults things means is that the vaults are no longer the prize at the end of the journey. Every Borderlands game to date has held back the vault as the main objective for the game, each to varying degrees. Borderlands 1, 2, PreSequel, and Tales, all of their final locations were vaults, and it's starting to lose its magic. Nobody expects the vault to be a reward anymore, because it never is. Instead, I'd love to see Borderlands 3 step away from being about the journey to a vault, and instead focus more on the mystery of what the vaults are and how the vaults are connected. Like, we know they're connected. PreSequel's vault led to the one in Borderlands 2, and now that one is showing us the location of many others. Let us visit a bunch of them. I want to enter one and come out on a different planet. I want to fight several vault monsters. Maybe even at the same time, that'd be cool. You've spent 4 games setting up that there's more to these vaults than meets the eye, and it's time to finally cash in on that. Borderlands 2 also had a piece of DLC called Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. The framing device here for that DLC is that the Borderlands 1 Vault Hunters were all playing a game of Dungeons & Dragons, while the Borderlands 2 Vault Hunters were pumping a Hyperion employee for information. Probably torturing him? I don't think it's confirmed. Probably torturing him. At the end of the DLC, they end up getting access codes to Helios, and they get excited to go attack the space station. I mentioned this earlier in the Let's Play when we were walking through the rubble of Helios. Players were excited to finally get the chance to go take it down, but they never did. If people want to bring Helios crashing down to Pandora, they're going to have to play Tales from the Borderlands. Or will they? As funny as I think it would be to open Borderlands 3 with hellfire raining down from the sky around the Vault Hunters because some random Hyperion employee beat them to the punch, I actually have a theory. Grab your tinfoil hats, folks, because we're going to cover some weird ground. You see, in Tales from the Borderlands, there's a very specific garbage can that, oh hey, where are you going? For real though, there's a garbage can whose contents are very suspect. There's one in the wreckage of Helios that you can scan with Reese's Echo Eye. This is something I chose not to do in the video because I didn't want to open a very impactful video with tons of scanning and reading, so I'm mentioning this most important one here. Here we can see what's inside of it. Now, if there was only some Pim and Taco wrappers, I could easily write this off as a referential line to a throwaway joke from Borderlands 2.
Wait a moment while I hack the catch-a-ride.
Authorized user accepted. Enjoy the ride, and there's a pimento taco in the glove box.
Cool.
The legendary Necromancer class mod is a little bit more suspicious. But again, if it was just this, I could just write it off as being a joke about how rare items in the Borderlands games are often found in strange locations, such as porta potties. It's the grenade encased in a stuffed rabbit that's throwing me for a loop, since there's really only one possible thing this could be a reference to: Tiny Tina. Tiny Tina is a little girl who is also a demolitions expert, and she often does things such as strap missiles to stuffed rabbits. There's really nothing else this could be a reference to, so how did this end up in a garbage can on Helios? The only way this makes sense to me is if Tiny Tina was also up on Helios. But why? Well, to narrow that down, let's think about how she could have gotten up there. There's no way she could have gotten up there alone. She probably had help from some friends, almost all of which are Vault Hunters. Now ask yourselves, what would several Vault Hunters be doing up on Hyperion Space Station? Folks, there's a possibility that Borderlands 3 will open with the revelation that Reese was not the only person who brought down Helios. I don't know how the Vault Hunters could have gotten up onto the space station undetected, nor do I know why AI Jack never mentioned anything about them as the place was coming down, but I think there's a chance that the beginning of Borderlands 3 will have the players take down Helios. The fall of Helios is a momentous occasion for the Borderlands series. So momentous, in fact, that I don't think they can open Borderlands 3 with, oh, by the way, Helios has already crashed and burned, you should have bought Tales from the Borderlands. I mean, they should, but I don't think they can afford to assume everyone will have played Tales because it's such a departure in gameplay styles. Again, as with everything else in this video, it's just guesses and wishful thinking, but I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out the Vault Hunters also played a hand in the destruction of Helios. The ending of the pre-sequel is where things really start to get a lot harder to guess at their importance, so let's go over what happens. Lilith nearly has Athena killed by firing squad, but is saved by an Iridian. The only words of warning we hear from the Iridian is that we will need all the Vault Hunters we can get because war is coming. War from who? Well, I don't know. It's such a vague statement. If I absolutely had to guess something, there's two possibilities that come to mind. The first is that all of the vaults were left behind so that the Iridians could come around and be ready to dominate the galaxy at a moment's notice. Kind of like the Reapers from Mass Effect. And this one Iridian has gone rogue and is coming to warn the humans. It could explain why this Iridian was working with the antagonist of the pre-sequel, since the antagonist of the pre-sequel's goal was to destroy the moon and with it, the vault. I'm not sure why the Iridians would want to conquer humanity, but there's so little we know about them in the first place, so who knows. Another possibility is that there could be a second form of alien life out there somewhere, and they're coming to take over the galaxy, and the Iridians left the vaults lying around in preparation for their arrival. This could result in humans taking up arms alongside the Iridians against a third force, and it'd be interesting to take a former enemy, the Iridians, and make them an ally. At the very least, I'm just kind of hoping that the enemy is something we haven't seen before, because having a fourth game where you battle another corporation would get kind of old. And lastly, we have the ending details from the Borderlands. There isn't a lot here to say that I didn't already say during the credits to the final episode. We really don't know where Reese and Fiona ended up getting teleported, and there's not a lot of hints. I do hope they come back, though, for Borderlands 3, because if they end up coming back, then there's a couple of things they would have an immediate impact on. Fiona could be a playable Vault Hunter, because she's a Vault Hunter now, and Reese could bring Atlas back into production. Atlas guns in the first game were generally the best guns in the game. They were cool and rare, and seeing them come back would be pretty awesome. But then again, Reese doesn't know what Atlas is going to be. He might not want to spread pain and misery through guns across the universe, so who knows. Then there's the whole shenanigans about Helios being destroyed. Personally, I don't think this means the complete end of Hyperion. Obviously, Hyperion will no longer be the primary antagonist, but they are a big company. I think they'll still be around in some capacity, even if it is just selling guns. I really hope the Children of Helios make an appearance. It would likely have to be more of a town than a combat area. They're too peaceful and don't even use guns when they don't have to, and I'd feel terrible gunning down Vaughn's friends. Still, I think the wreckage of Helios would be a fun place to visit. Oh my god, the more I'm talking about this, the more I realize how long this is getting. Okay, so let's briefly touch on all the major characters and guess what kind of impact they'll have. So first up we have Borderlands 1 characters. Roland is dead. Brick and Mordecai will likely still be around. Brick is a fan favorite, and Mordecai is... he's there, I guess. Lilith will unfortunately probably be a major character in Borderlands 3. They're kinda pushing her to the forefront of every game they can. It sucks. If I had my way, I'd like to see her be in more of an antagonistic role. Maybe not as the main bad guy or anything, but she actually has a lot in common with Handsome Jack. She's full of herself, she thinks she's the coolest, and she blames everybody else for problems that she played a hand in. She's really set up in the theme of everyone thinks they're the hero of their own story, and I'd love to see them take advantage of that. Scooter is unfortunately dead. However, Mikey Newman, the writer of Borderlands 3 and voice of Scooter, has recently gone on record saying there could be a replacement for Scooter.
And she had this idea, she's like, what if Scooter had a kid? Like off screen.
Like an illegitimate son.
Yeah, or legitimate, whatever, we don't know. He's still all over the place. And I honestly at first didn't like the idea, because I was like, well, that's like so on the nose. And then late at night, like 3 in the morning, I'm in my bed, and I was like, what if he had a kid named Scooper? And I was like, this is the funniest thing ever. So I just ran into my, because I have a home studio for recording, and I just started screwing around. I was like, hey, man, what if I was a little kid? What if I... And I did this whole Scooter thing, and then I pitch shifted it up like 7 semitones, so it sounded like a chipmunk. It was the funniest thing I've ever heard. And I was like, Scooper is canon. We're done.
That may or may not make it in.
Now, as great as that would be, I'm pretty sure it's unfortunately just a joke, so don't be surprised if you don't see Scooper in Borderlands 3. Now, there's also noted Borderlands constants Mad Moxie and Claptrap, who have been in every game so far. I'll be genuinely surprised if they aren't part of the story in some way. Not to mention that Mad Moxie is actually Scooter's mom. I don't remember if I mentioned that during the Let's Play. I probably should have, but she's not a major character in that game. It would be nice to see how she has handled the death of her son, since over the course of the games, she's been shown to be very close to her family. So next up is Borderlands 2 characters. Now I'm pretty sure all of the Borderlands 2 Vault Hunters will be around in some capacity. it would be their chance to give the Borderlands 2 Vault Hunters the same treatment they gave the Borderlands 1 Vault Hunters when the Borderlands 1 Vault Hunters became NPCs in Borderlands 2. Wow, the more I say Vault Hunters, the weirder it sounds. In Borderlands 1, none of the Vault Hunters really had any personality, and it's kind of the same in 2. But when the ones from 1 became NPCs in 2, they suddenly were able to give them tons of dialogue in an attempt to flesh out their importance to the story. I'm really hoping it is the same case with 2, where suddenly the main characters from 2 have a lot more exposition and importance. Well, most of them. Krieg is more of a lost puppy, an insane psycho who just follows the Vault Hunters around because he thinks Maya is pretty. He's a result of science experiments being performed on him by Hyperion, and I'm afraid with most of Hyperion being destroyed, we may never actually find out who he was to begin with. Speaking of Hyperion, when my Let's Play came down to the choice of crushing or keeping the AI of Jack alive, I read several comments saying they kept Jack alive because they figured it would be canonical, that there was no way Gearbox would ever kill Jack for good, because they love his voice actor, Damian Clark, too much. And you know what? I kind of had to agree with that. It's true that Gearbox is the kind of company that's going to want to keep Damian Clark around any way they possibly can. So I'm going to suggest the perfect way to keep Handsome Jack around in the story. You see, they could replace Handsome Jack with Handsome Jack. Doppelganger. This isn't actually Handsome Jack. This is a man named Timothy Lawrence. He was a playable character in the PreSequel. He's a nice, innocent soul, a cute little boy who underwent surgery to become Handsome Jack's doppelganger to pay off his student loans. He's been missing since the end of the PreSequel. No, you didn't kill him in Borderlands 2, that was a different body double. Handsome Jack has lots of body doubles, this is a canonical fact. Bringing back Timothy Lawrence would solve two problems. One, you could continue to have Damian Clark as Handsome Jack in your game. Secondly, you no longer have to have Handsome Jack be the antagonist. He can be an ally and more of a minor character. I really hope this is the route that they go for. Speaking of PreSequel characters, let's move on to them. Many of them are dead. Wilhelm is dead. Nisha is dead. Athena and Janie, still alive. They're almost certainly going to be around. Athena is very popular, and Janie is intended to be Scooter's replacement, provided Scooper isn't actually real. If them getting married, Athena and Janie, not Scooper, isn't canonical, I'm going to be extremely surprised. I mean, yes, their marriage is a result based on decisions that you've made in Tales, but there has to be a canonical route. They're probably going to be married. Aurelia is a loose end. I think her appearance is going to be based entirely around whether her brother, Sir Hammerlock, is in the game. Now, they hate each other, but I don't think they would bring only one of them back. The thing about Gearbox, though, is that they're extremely good at reusing as many characters as possible. So if I had to place a bet, I'm pretty sure they're both going to make an appearance. It'd actually be really cool to see some kind of rival side quest between the two, because they hate each other. Sort of like the Clan War side quest in Borderlands 2, that eventually culminates in you picking a side between them. It would be a fun reuse of the two characters. Now, I'm pretty sure that's all of the PreSequel characters, so let's just move on to Tales from the Border... Alright, fine. This is Pickle. He sucks, mostly because he is a prime example of some of the terrible quest design in the Borderlands games. Now, unfortunately, in the present day, Pickle is in Sanctuary with everyone else, so unfortunately he is definitely alive and no longer on the moon. Now, granted, we don't have any idea how he got off the moon or why he got off the moon, so that I guess there's potential for some character development there. Maybe he'll be Athena and Janie's adopted son. I don't know. I have no idea how they're going to make his appearance relevant otherwise. And lastly, on to Tales from the Borderlands characters. While I think they have the perfect excuse to not use recent Fiona and keep them out of the story, at least for a while, I don't think they'll do that. I think we're going to quickly learn where they went, because they're too interesting to leave to the wayside. Now, as I mentioned before, Fiona could be a playable character, and if they want her to be a playable character, they're going to have to make that an option very, very soon in the game. On top of that, the sooner Reese comes back, the sooner we also have Atlas back into the picture. Now, with Fiona comes Sasha, since there's no way she would abandon her sister. And then, of course, there's also Vaughn and the Children of Helios, who are too cool not to include in the game. Felix is likely gone for good. His story is done, there's really no point in bringing him back. Cassius, he'll make an appearance if they double down on Reese reviving Atlas. I don't know what they'll do with Atlas, but if Atlas is back, I'm sure Cassius is going to be around as well. August is a bit of a wild card. I feel like they have an opportunity to make Hollow Point a place you can visit, and if they do that, I'm positive the Purple Skag would be there as well. So I guess his appearance really depends on where the story goes, because if my guess is right that the next game will span multiple planets, I'm really not sure if they would bother making Hollow Point a town you could go to. It's probably too unimportant. There's nothing there that we know about anyway. Now finally, we have everyone's favorite robots, Loaderbot and Gortys. Last we saw of them, they wandered off into the sunset. It was beautiful, it was touching. To be honest, I would be perfectly happy if we never saw them again. Let them live alone in peace. They earned it. And so brings an end to all of this speculation on where the plot of Borderlands could go from here. How many things did I get right? How many things did I get horribly, horribly wrong? Probably all of it? Probably all of it, but I suppose only time will tell. I'm looking forward to looking back on this video when the next Borderlands game comes out, and taking it down out of embarrassment when it turns out the next game we get is a Borderlands Battleborn crossover. But until then, I'd like to thank you all again for watching. Like, seriously, again, thank you. It's been real. Good night, everybody. Wait, I forgot the most important character, Dunks Watson.
Now it's time to slam and jam.
Gearbox. This is an open letter from me to you directly. If you don't have Dunks Watson showing up Morrowind style, where his dumb basketball yelling ass slams into another planet or space station in Borderlands 3, you've seriously fucked up. Make it happen.